Rock Solid Families wants to thank Casey's Outdoor Solutions for sponsoring the Rock Solid Families podcast. Casey's has grown to be one of the largest and most unique garden centers and gift shops in the Cincinnati tri-state area. Whether you are looking to take on that next landscape project or simply add a little home decor to your house, Casey's has you covered. Located at 21481 State Line Road, Lawrenceburg, Indiana. Call them today at 812-537-3800. Let Casey's help you add beauty to your home. Welcome to Rock Solid Families Podcast. This is Merrill Hutchinson being joined by two ladies. Any of you that are actually watching today rather than just listening, we are welcoming two ladies. One is my main partner in life and partner at Rock Solid Families, Linda Hutchinson. Linda, how are you today?
I'm good, but you didn't get the memo about the jean jacket.
You guys didn't get the memo about the uniform shirt. Man.
Yeah.
Hey, we have a special guest, but not just a guest. We have a new addition to the Rock Solid Families team. And so today we would like to welcome Meredith Scudder to Rock Solid Families. Meredith, thank you for joining us on the show today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah. So
nothing like throwing her right into the fire.
Oh, yeah. Oh, by the way, tomorrow we're going to be recording. And so we are going to introduce all of our listeners and viewers to Meredith today as we are welcoming her into the Rock Solid Families team as a new addition, as a counselor and therapist with us. But, before we get into that, let's maybe take care of a few basics that we need to, and then we'll get ready to roll.
Yeah, so we want to thank our sponsors, Casey's Outdoor Solutions and Maxwell Construction, for their support of Rock Solid Families podcast and what we get to do at Rock Solid Families. And so we are able to hire a new coach to join our team because of the faithful support of sponsors like Casey's and Maxwell, as well as so many partners that walk alongside us in this ministry and this mission.
All right. We are going to get into some of the bloody detail of Meredith's story. So the suspense hangs in the air.
Confession time.
Now I'm
scared. Meredith has some background and history that brought her into this field. But just to help all of you out there, Meredith's going to be talking a little bit today about some of what she brings to our team in terms of her training and also just the clientele group that she plans on working with, okay? Hun, when is Meredith going to actually start seeing clients in our office?
Yeah, so depending on when you're listening to this podcast, she comes on board officially on June 1st, and she will be starting to see clients by June 5th. So we're already scheduling. She's already got some clients already on her calendar. And so if you are in need, we'll be talking about what her specialties are, what her area of interest is. But if Meredith is the coach for you, you can contact her at rocksolidfamilies.org, or you can call our office at 812-576-7625.
All right. So to Meredith and to you guys out there listening, this is actually more exciting for Linda and I than probably Meredith or you out there watching. It's exciting because in 2018, it was laid on Linda and I's heart to start something like Rock Solid Families, to start this ministry. And, already we're 5 years in, which that in itself seems amazing that it's been around 5 years. But we really started from pretty much zero.
Nothing.
Right? I mean, we had no office space. Yep. We had some experience basically because we had been in this field for a long time. We had a drive. We had the Holy Spirit, I think, tugging on us, and then we had the Holy Spirit brought somebody into our life who basically challenged us. And so that was in 2018. And when we look back now, we have an office. We have lots of support and just people behind us.
We have seen thousands and thousands of families, individuals, and couples over the past 5 years. We've written tons of blogs and articles, and we've spoke at churches and schools and nonprofits. And so we've had the opportunity. We've got over 400 different podcasts, right? Between Strong Dads and Rock Solid Families podcasts. And so, but today is an exciting day in the life of Rock Solid Families, right?
Yeah. Well, because now we're maxed out. Linda and I have kind of hit like, okay, we need some help. And we also, not just do we need help, but we need even more expertise in areas that maybe, sometimes you realize what you're good at, but you also come to discover what you're not as good at. And so we have been able to talk with Meredith and see that she's going to bring some things to the table that Linda and I maybe are not as up to speed as we would like to be, and something that we see a lot in our office, and we want to be able to offer that. So we are super excited that we get to open the door to Meredith to come in. So Meredith, welcome to the Rock Solid Families team.
Thank you.
How are you doing today?
I'm doing great.
Yeah. Have you ever done a podcast show or YouTube show?
No, just my phone and, little videos here and there on Facebook whenever I feel led by the Spirit. But nope, this is brand new to me.
So Meredith, tell us a little bit, for those that are listening to our podcast or maybe watching on YouTube, tell us a little bit about Meredith.
Okay. Well, it's really amazing even to just hear that you guys have been doing this for 5 years, because I'm thinking, man, what the Lord has been doing for me in 5 years. And, I grew up in Bride, Indiana, lived there most of my life, graduate from East Central, always had an interest in psychology and just how the mind works and, why we do the things we do, which led me to pursuing my bachelor's in psychology. I got that from IU East. And while earning my undergrad, I was working at Bride Elementary.
I remember those days.
Yeah. Merrill and I actually go back. This isn't our first time working together.
Yeah. You were like a school social worker, right? Or how was that?
So at that time, I started off working as a substitute, which is really where I started to become passionate about working with kids. I never really thought about working with the littles. Didn't really know what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
But subbing, it just was really neat and just opened my eyes to how rewarding it would be to work with kids. And right after getting my undergrad, I actually got offered a position in the special education department at Bride Elementary. And that really just kind of opened my eyes to just the struggles that kids are dealing with. In that department, a lot of the kids, they're struggling academically, behaviorally, emotionally. And, and we were putting in interventions and, doing everything we could, but still would just see them struggle. And so it just really made me want to know why, that question, just wanting to dig deeper, which then led to me pursuing my master's in social work.
Okay.
And within that, I was really, really interested in the brain and brain-based therapy. Again, it felt like we were just kind of managing the symptoms. And there seemed to be a deeper rooted problem that wasn't being addressed.
Yeah.
So I just became really passionate about learning about the brain, brain-based therapies. And when I went into grad school, at the time, my goal was wanting to learn these brain-based therapies and bring it into schools. So I was able to do that, and I can talk later about a specific therapy that I learned. But I did graduate with my master's in social work, was a school social worker for a couple years in Indianapolis.
Okay. Yeah, so you're from this area. As a matter of fact, you're a former student of both Merrill and I.
attended Bright Elementary.
I did.
Which I was the school counselor there.
Full circle.
Yeah.
And Meredith was a student in my ministry, and it blows my mind, Meredith. I'll never forget when you kind of shared a little bit of after you graduated with your master's and a decision you made to kind of take another position out of state, that you were just talking about your heart and your passion and your desire and what you thought God was doing there. And so tell us a little bit about where you ended up going after those couple of years in school social work.
Yeah. So working in the schools, and I was also working in private practice. And, I was working with students that had a lot of trauma. And, we hear the word trauma, and I feel like, our brains kind of go to these bigger events, either like a loss, something really traumatic, right? Like war.
Tragedy, yeah.
Right. And I learned, trauma, it doesn't have to be something really big like that. A divorce, a child going through a split family, moving multiple times, being bullied at school. Trauma looks a lot of different ways. And it's subjective, like we could experience the same thing.
Yeah.
My brain might interpret it differently, and it'd be traumatic.
Yeah.
So I was just really seeing a lot of trauma, learning a lot about that. And that, again, made me want to just dig deeper and how can we get to the root of this trauma? It led me to a position in Wisconsin. Doing wilderness therapy. It was definitely the Lord, because never in my life did I think I would move to Wisconsin. I am the beach, warm weather type of girl. I'm not.
Well, what are you doing living in Indiana then?
Hey,
it's not quite Wisconsin.
No. At least the snow melts here.
There you go.
Wasn't excited about several feet of snow.
Yeah.
But I went on this adventure to Wisconsin, working in the middle of a national forest, helping youth and their families heal.
Wow.
What was amazing about it, there was a lot of things amazing about it, but my personal experience and what the Lord did in me and for me.
Wow.
I thought he was taking me there for my dream job and, to advance my career. And turns out he was taking me there for my own wilderness experience, to renew my mind and transform my heart.
Wow. Wow. Powerful.
Yeah. Well, I think that's really cool, though, Meredith, because, I think, and it's no fault of schooling, but schooling kind of gives you a false sense of your abilities and readiness to go take on the career. Well, I know all of this stuff from the books now, but it's not until you actually, like I remember many times I actually student taught for your uncle, Kenny Wilson. And I remember while I was student teaching for him, because he used to be like, man, don't worry about the book. Don't worry about the book, and how often I would have these eureka moments, like when you were teaching something and all of a sudden you internalized it as a teacher and you went, now that makes sense. And so when you actually get out in the field of coaching or counseling or teaching and you actually watch it work or not work in some cases, right, it gains an entirely different understanding. And so you started to discover that.
Yeah. And something you don't know when you're going into this field of mental health, like your own stuff's going to come up. And and it did as soon as I started studying it. And I always turned to God. But being in the middle of the woods, working with these kids, they're dealing with their stuff. I'm holding that space for them to process their stuff. And it's activating things in me too. So it's just this parallel process.
So tell us a little bit about what God taught you in that wilderness that you've brought back from that time, from that season. You sound like you went there thinking it was your dream job, and like it sounds like God did some work on you in that time. So what have you brought back in that?
Yeah. I literally could write a book, and maybe that's something I
There
do
you go,
down the
someday.
road.
Yeah.
I could share forever on what the Lord did when I was there. I think one of the biggest things was he helped me see what I was turning to, the things of this world I was turning to for happiness, for temporary happiness, comfort, security. And he helped me flip that and turn towards him.
Wow.
Where I actually felt and received true joy, true peace, and identity.
Wow.
One of the biggest things, my whole life, success to me was achievement in school. And there's a lot of good that can come out of that, right? Like where I am today and what I've learned and what I do for others, it's great. But for the longest time, really my whole life, that was my worth.
Wow.
My work equaled my worth, and God shattered that.
Wow. Wow.
And actually, your worth is in me.
Wow. And Meredith, that for me gives me chills, because that's exactly what Rock Solid Families is all about, whether it be an individual, a teenager, a young adult, whether it be a couple and where they're struggling, a family and their vision for their life. Like if it's not found, the worth and the value in him and him alone, it's not going to last, right? It's sinking sand, as we call it a lot. And so, yeah, that's powerful stuff.
Well, Meredith, it's difficult. It's difficult because we raise our kids to be achievers, right? We want them to get the best grades. We want them to get into the best schools. We want them to win on their teams. We want them to get these things. And I think that can become our God. It can become our judge of whether we're valuable or not. And so I love the way you put this. And I say this all the time in our work. We don't even know how of the world we are.
Yeah.
You're just it's so baked in to our upbringing and our culture that it's not until you finally go, well, I've got the big house, I've got the job, I've got the money.
Why am I still
and
feeling
everything
miserable?
is still falling apart. What's going on?
Right.
Yeah.
And so I think this is a very valuable thing for all of us. And as you said, it's not that these things, these achievements in and of themselves are bad or anything. Because actually, when you start behaving in your gifts from God, achievements will happen, right? Because you'll just have the desire to go do.
Right.
And the next thing you know, you're going to get, God's going to provide for you.
Yeah.
But we very easily get it out of order. And you just described a lot of that for you personally.
Right. Well, and I think, that's where the power is in the wilderness therapy, like it's taking the kids out of their everyday world and putting them in this environment where they don't have the distractions.
And
they
it
don't
did to you too.
Right. Yeah. And that's what happened to me. That's what I'm saying. I went through my own wilderness. I left everything I knew, I went literally.
That was brave just to take that chance and choice of yours.
Well, and that's where I say it was God. Because I felt so much peace with it.
Yeah. Wow. So now you're back in Indiana, the greater Cincinnati area, and you're joining our team. And so what do you see God doing in this season? Like, what do you want or what do you hope for here being a part of this team?
Yeah. There's a lot of reasons I believe God brought me back. But in the job that I was in and previous jobs I've had, it's hard to not be able to speak God's truth. And especially when I've experienced, what he's done for me and how he's helped me heal. It's hard to not bring that into the process. So, I'm excited to be a part of a faith-based, program and be able to show. You can always show people Jesus, with his love and light, but to be able to really incorporate it into the work and, something I think, really close to my heart and what I'm seeing a lot of the youth struggle with is identity.
Yeah.
And, they're not going to know their identity until they know Christ.
Yeah.
So just really passionate about continuing to help others heal, holding that space for them, but impacting not only the individuals, but the family as a whole.
Yeah. That's what really was powerful to me, Meredith, about your story and leaving that wilderness training, is that it was in your mind a dream job, making good money, getting to do what you were trained to do. But without the Jesus piece in there, you felt like something was still missing.
And, I have to say, God always shows up. I mean, I know he was showing up and shining in the individuals and families that I couldn't speak Jesus, Heck, I had a family session, not really Christ followers, I'd say. And it ended with the student asking their mom to buy a Bible.
Wow.
And it's just like moments like that. It's like God reminded me, like, hey, even if you can't speak my name, I'm still doing it.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's what we want to make sure that our listeners know, is that even though you are a licensed therapist, we're not going to be asking you to do licensed therapy. You're going to be doing faith-based coaching, but still bringing in your therapeutic training and tools into the sessions in a very impactful way, I believe. But we have the freedom. You see, we're not bound by ethical guidelines or restrictions as a licensed therapist. That's why we call ourselves faith-based coaches, so that God and His Word are included in everything we do.
Yeah.
Not shoved down people's throats, but
Right.
Yeah. Our job is not, as we are able to do it and see it, is not to affirm man's way of living, but God's way of living. And so, a lot of therapy, and we see this in the schools, in the counseling world. We see teachers and counselors all the time, because that's a big part of our group friend, that talk about, man, how restricted they feel by not being able to bring the way of God or Christ into their daily work, whether it's teaching a kid how to do math problems or counseling somebody through a struggle in life. And I think that feeling of emptiness right there should be a big light bulb to the world of saying, there's a reason why things are not going well. Meredith, I have a question for you, because you made a little bit of mention to it, but part of your when you start working in counseling or teaching, you kind of find a niche that you either like or you tend to be good at. All right. What's your niche going to be? And I know you mentioned some training and stuff with the trauma and stuff. So, like, what's an area that you feel really inspired and excited about in the counseling world?
Yeah. So I've obviously talked a lot about trauma. And I think just to add to that, I can't, like, I view everything through a trauma lens. We have all these different diagnoses, and we see a lot of anxiety, depression, rising, right?
ADHD.
Oh, yeah. And when you learn about the individual and what they've been through, it's like, well, no, there's just like a lot of trauma there. You've been through a lot. And my diagnosis, and I've heard, other therapists say this, but it's pain. You've just been hurt.
Yeah. And we've all experienced pain at some level.
Yeah. So, developmental trauma specifically too, experiencing a lot of hurt or loss throughout the earlier years of life.
Okay.
And with that, specializing in attachment too, which all kind of goes together. But I've had a lot of experience working with children that have been in the foster care or adopted. And even just learning and knowing the trauma that happens just from being separated from biological parent and the impact that has on the child.
Yeah.
And, everything else that they go through from that moment on, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah.
So we have you kind of slated to work with a lot of our adolescents, especially adolescent girls, teenage girls, young adult women, maybe some single moms. That's going to be, but But hopefully we're going to find that niche for you where, we already see a huge need coming in our office of just people with a past that they can't get past. It's a huge barrier. There's a wall there of just pain that they've masked or self-medicated or kind of stuffed. And so we really are excited about that. And you join our team. And again, bringing in the newest research and training and tools available in the world of therapy and counseling. And so I'm excited, so excited for you to be here.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. Meredith, when you talk about the trauma, just to go back to that for a second, I think it's something that the general population out there only can understand trauma through their own eyes for what it would mean to them. So like I talk to people all the time, I don't know what their big deal is. I would have just done this, or it's not that big of a deal.
Yeah,
I mean, you just lost a job. I mean, go get another job. And so I think an interesting part of us working with trauma is recognizing not just that trauma is relative depending on the person, but it's also relative to their own biology in terms of how they handle it. Some people go out into a fight, right? Some people go into the flight, some people freeze. And so it's so easy for us to just dismiss things that we don't understand. And so that's where, I really like the idea, like we have ADHD, we have OCD, we have ODD, we have all of these different things, but those are just the symptoms that come out from them trying to survive from whatever sort of wreckage, trauma, pain that they've had. And so, and again, I'm not to fault like these labels. At the end of the day, you got to find a way to treat people. And so people are grasping for straws. But I love the way you put this, like, if you just look at that whole ball of wax of all of these different sort of symptoms that we're out there trying to treat, even though they have different labels on them, many of them are all coming back to the same way of how we dealt with a difficult situation. And then you had said this the other day, even if you deal with it in a way that doesn't seem very effective, you get comfortable with it. So like if maybe losing your temper is what you do, it just feels natural and you continue to do it. But in the meantime, you're causing all kinds of more havoc. Yeah.
Well, and, the trauma or the wound, we're creating defenses to protect ourselves, right? Where at a time, those defenses did protect us and they served us. And then we get to a point they no longer serve us and they actually create more struggle and difficulty in our relationships and our daily life.
Yeah. Meredith, part of the story that gives me chills still is that you did leave that job to come back home without a plan, without a job.
Which is trauma right there.
I mean,
I call it faith.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you. Trusting that God is going to bless your heart's desire to serve him in a way that you felt called to. Right. And so I can't help but thinking of Psalm 37:4. It says, "Take delight in the Lord, and he will give you the desires of your heart." Commit your way to the Lord, trust in him, and he will do this. And I get chills because little did you know, because you didn't even really know what we did at Rock Solid. You knew us, but you didn't know what we were doing. And you didn't know we were on the search for an additional counselor until we did lunch.
Yeah. I thought you were going to ask me to be on the podcast.
Well, we got that too.
Yeah, we got both. But the fact that you had taken that leap of faith, trusting that God was going to guide your steps and equip you for whatever he had called next, blows my mind because the timing is only what God could do.
Right.
And that we know you so well, that we've grown up with you, we've seen God work in your life, and the fact that he has trained you in this real specific training and put this thing on your heart to serve him with it.
Right.
Like that blows my mind.
Yeah. I mean, that's what I was saying. Even just hearing your guys' journey with just Rock Solid Families the past 5 years and reflecting like, man, the past 5 years, how God's been equipping me. And now look where we are.
Yeah.
Well, and, I think just for you listeners out there, Lynn and I probably, I'll say close to every other show, somehow we come back to some of the things that we see in our local community. But so much of it has dealt with what now we are recognizing as trauma, with especially the adolescent female population. And it's coming in at 2 to 3 to 1 of really just about every other group that we see. And that is what God, I believe, has been preparing us to receive you. Because, you know, our young girls and our parents of these girls really could use some God's steering and direction and comfort here. And so what
from a
an
godly
awesome
perspective too, because there's licensed therapy out there that is, I believe, doing more harm than good with some of our girls and really affirming some of these lies that the enemy has planted in their mind. And I think of, you know, Romans 12, it says, do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. That comes from him. Okay. And so it says, you'll be able to test and approve what God's will is, his good, pleasing, and perfect will. Like if they don't know what God's word says, if they've never been exposed to God's ways, then the world is just kind of taking them off in this wave of the culture, right? And the lies.
Well, and telling them that you can do it.
Yeah.
It's you.
Right.
You know,
Actually
you have the
giving
power,
permission.
you have the ability. And when they're already depressed and don't know who they are,
confused,
and, right? Like,
Yeah.
then they're hopeless.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the title of the show should be Work Doesn't Equal Your Worth. And because it is so much of our mentality of is like what I do and what I look like is how worthy I am or what my identity is. And God has a whole different plan, and his plan is perfect. His plan is much better than anything we could ever ask or imagine.
Yeah. Well, Meredith, we do want to welcome you to Rock Solid Families. And we can't wait for you to start seeing clients and really helping out in that area. You guys out there that have been listening, you know, if something we have said or Meredith has said and just seeing her, if that is drawing an interest to you, please, I mean, don't hesitate. I mean, part of all of this is us being willing to be coached, to be humble enough to say, I need to see this in a different light. And so please reach out to us. You can get us on our website at rocksolidfamilies.org or call our office at 812-576-7625 because, you know, we have even more resources now through Meredith and God's Word and the work that we're doing, and we want to continue to be able to offer that.
Yeah. So as we close, we want to thank Meredith. Welcome to the team.
Yes,
so
thank
excited.
you.
2 to 1. You're outnumbered. You're going to have to get a jean jacket.
So soon we're going to be looking for a male.
Yeah, but we do. We want to close and we want to thank our sponsors again, Casey's Outdoor Solutions and Maxwell Construction for their support of Rock Solid Families podcast and the ministry of Rock Solid Families.
Thanks again for listening to Rock Solid Families podcast, building a stronger community, one family at a time. Make it a great day. Rock Solid Families wants to thank Maxwell Construction for sponsoring the Rock Solid Families podcast. For over 30 years, Maxwell Construction has been a leader in turning dreams into realities, building schools, banks, restaurants, and many other commercial and public facilities. Maxwell Construction has made it their priority to not just build buildings, but to build into their community. So if you have any construction needs, call them at 812-537-2200.